The biggest underestimated part in online travel is the competitive landscape in online marketing. Meaning, if you just look at this year, what the four online travel agencies and Airbnb are spending on online marketing, it's $20 billion.
Booking.com isn't like Google's biggest customer or something like that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
travel is a 10 trillion industry. It's the
Yeah.
third biggest export after like gas and some other types of manufacturing. It's huge and it's extremely competitive. And we didn't know like how competitive it is. So if, for example, you have a room in New York and it's heavily discounted. But when you search in Google for rooms in New York, you see Booking and Expedia and Airbnb. That's really the problem. And what we understood that we've built this kind of magical marketplace where you have those amazing deals. But if you don't find the right person looking for this right deal at the right time, it's not going to be working.
Welcome to the Aggaeus podcast. Buckle up. This episode is brought to you by Better Weight for Life, transformational weight loss aid, led by U.S. board certified physicians, providing access to GLP-1 medications like Wegovy and Zepbound that are proven to help you lose weight and keep it off. This episode is brought to you by CardsBiz, a business card too good to give away.
So this is cards. This is what we make in CardsBiz. This is the black Amex of business card, made out of metal, glass polymer, engraved in real gold or silver. And basically you don't give this away. You basically tap somebody's phone and the information is shared. So like you make the best impression in every meeting.
Hello, Gon.
Hi, Haggai. Thank you very much for having me today.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Before we jump in and like have a background and the very interesting startup that you're leading and building, I don't think everybody knows what the name means. So maybe we'll start with what does GON stand for?
Gon is a shade of color. Basically, it's a word in Hebrew. But also, I found out that Gon is also a hero in the manga show and anime show named Hunter x Hunter. It's learned about it like 2 years ago. Really like the show. So if you're into anime, it was the first anime I saw except for Pokemon. So it's another meaning I learned.
So basically, you're saying it's a kick-ass name. It's a kick-ass name.
Thank you.
So, Gon and the Legend. Like, who are you? For people who don't know you.
My name is Gon Ben David. I grew up in the northern part of Israel, and I'm the co-founder and CEO of Rumor. Besides that, I'm a husband and a father of 3 adorable kids as well.
And Rumor does.
So today, Rumor basically connects travel creators and the travel industry, and I'll explain about that more as well. But we started with a very simple mission originally, which was to help travelers resell their canceled reservations. And it was a very novel idea back then. Served about the general market was $8.6 billion that are lost every year due to cancellations. And then we expanded that into a cancel for any reason product that we worked with the biggest insurance companies in the world and offered that through online travel agencies and hotels. And the magic there was that we're able to, on one side, underwrite the risk based on the data we have from cancellations, and then also resell those rooms when they get canceled. So it was a very novel idea back then. But after COVID happened, we understood that the problem with travel is no longer supply and no longer just cancellations, because the non-refundable world kind of evaporated. It became demand. And I think you know that, Haggai, very well. It's creators who are now the new celebrities. They are the ones who are leading 76% of travel decision bookings. So we saw that there is a huge gap between how much they influence versus how much money they are able to generate from their influence and content.
So before we go into what you do, like go deeper into the company, I want to go a little about your background, because it's like, I'm surrounded by entrepreneurs, and once you do it for a long time, it's kind of obvious, but it's the pathless take it, right? It's not, it's abnormal to be an entrepreneur. So why did you become an entrepreneur to begin with?
I think that I never rationalized it to myself as a something that I'm planning on doing. The first thing I did was basically to build a website when I was 13 or 14. It was called Mabareshet, which is what's happening on the internet. It was maba.coil that I've built when I was 13 or 14. And I was just fascinated by the fact that you can build things. Like, who am I? And to be able to do that. And then once you see that you're able to build things and they're just public, it's a magical feeling that I could never shake from. I couldn't forget or unlearn this experience.
Yeah.
And then a few years after that, I grew up in Emek Israel, the Valley of Israel, which is no Tel Aviv. It's not Tel Aviv. And I remember I've met some guys that were like really cool, and they were like organizing parties. And the first party that they were like ever promoted had this link, which like, want to see pictures of this party? Click here, or like enter the URL. And I remember I was like fascinated. Like, how do you combine the physical world with the internet? Like, which was so geeky back then. And I was like a complete geek and nerd. And like, I was,
And you're smiling as you're talking about this.
yeah. Because, you know, the geekiness and nerdiness like became accepted. It's now part of the pop world. And I remember that I was like talking to them, and they had like these scaling problems because they couldn't upload more videos more photos. I was like, let me do it. And then they said, if you can do that, we'll just add you to our group of like the parties and everything that I was like literally like couldn't even comprehend. And I remember like doing that and then having the best year of my life, going into parties, filming those parties, uploading it. We had thousands of people visiting the site back then. I was like 17 or so. And those are like such sweet memories that just like, in a way, they're entrepreneurship from a young age.
And how did it develop from that?
So I also studied computer science when I was in school. And then I had, I would say, a tough experience like in the army, meaning I was not in A200. I was in a special forces unit. I served in a special forces unit and completely detached from computers. And I remember that the job I did after that, if you remember all of those lousy jobs after the army, I worked in the Technion. And without disrespecting anyone or hurting anyone, my trajectory was to be in the computer science in the Technion. Like, that was what I knew I need to do. And then I worked there, and I knew I'm not going to live this life.
Why?
It was, for me back then, I was saving money to travel to South America. And everything that I was like envisioning or manifesting was colorful and musical and rich. And then I took the bus from like the Nazareth bus to the Technion, worked there, came back, and it was all great. Specifically where I worked, I learned a lot, but I didn't want to live this specific life. And I didn't know what this life were. I just didn't know that's not what I wanted to do. And I remember that it kind of lingered in me. And when I traveled to South America, I was in this balcony in Buenos Aires, and I called my mom and said, I'm going to study cinema in London. Now, I had no idea how I'm going to do that, but it started a good negotiation because we ended up like agreeing that I'll study communications in IDC, in Herzliya. So it was the first time that I did something that I wanted to do because I liked it and loved it in terms of study. And I really got excited a lot about entrepreneurship there, about the Zell entrepreneurship program, and just the whole DNA was very entrepreneurial.
And between that and Rumor, what's the trajectory?
So I was very lucky to be a student of Ofer Shani. Ofer Shani is a brilliant, almost, in some levels, I believe he's a genius professor. He was a lecturer. He was not like an academic professor. And I studied media and business and entrepreneurship, but also interactive media. And the people that built the interactive media in the IDC were all coming from the MIT Media Lab.
Mhm.
So brilliant minds, Oren Zuckerman and Dr. Oren Zuckerman, Dr. Guy Hoffman. And then we had this class that was basically how to web. And Ofer Shani is there. He's also the cousin of Eyal Shani, the chef. I think that they're very similar in, I don't know Eyal Shani, except for the TV and eating in his restaurants, but the same creativity, the same mindset. And he made me, and I think a lot of people, fall in love with the creation. And he added a lot of poetry to this, but also a lot of science to this. And then he said, you have to create a product that you'd like to use. And it was like, define a product and start building it. And that's where, in my mind, I went back to South America and said, when I traveled there, it was a huge problem to buy bus tickets. I had to go to the bus station, speak in Spanish, buy the ticket, go back to the hostel or whatever, and then go back to the bus station, like long haul trips. And I just like said, how can we build this online travel agency for bus tickets? And we were students, and we've built that, like I've built that. And then I spoke to my friends from the Valley, and we said, like, why won't we just build that? Obviously, we were in Israel, we were students, but we've built a company. We raised money from the chief scientist in Israel. We started developing that, and we actually negotiated and contracted the bus companies in Peru and went live with that. And that
All from Israel.
yeah, all from Skype. it was it was the Skype time back then, and it was like a lot of hustle, but it worked. Meaning it worked.
Well, like Skype, rest in peace. Like we need respect, right? People, I think it's like it was like people forget how momentous and life-changing Skype was at the time.
It
It
was
was like
huge.
it was huge. It made the world smaller. It made the world smaller. It was the first way. Like, oh my god, you don't have to pay for calls. It was amazing.
Exactly. And how
Yeah.
premium you feel when you add credit, like the balance, and you call
Yeah.
landlines. And that was magical, because when I got into the Zell Entrepreneurship Program a year later, I had a lot of this experience, and I was working days and nights about that. It was like a
Yeah.
completely passion project, but we got deals done with a Peruvian like bus company. And then it gave me so much lessons. I learned so many lessons about the travel industry and just about the APIs and building all of that. So that's what kind of led to Rumor, which we also created when I was a student as well.
And so you were basically kind of flirting with entrepreneurship, and then throughout your life, and then kind of jumping headfirst when you were in when you were in a university. What was the origin behind Rumor? Like, how did you came to the idea of building it?
So we were in the Zell Entrepreneurship Program was ran by Liata Aronson, and it was for us a very, very professional like experience. You need to be very methodical about how you come up with an idea, and you basically have people that are always giving you feedback. And I'm talking about real entrepreneurs, real professors, real people that are just giving you so much feedback. And we were 3 kids back then. We felt like adults, but we were like,
What year are we talking about?
we're talking about 2012. So we were students, like 25 years old. And we were 3 co-founders back then on the students program, and we discussed about personal experiences that we had to cancel a reservation and lost the money for the non-refundable portion of that. And then one of the people in the group said, oh, it actually happened to me too, but I was able to find someone who would take the room from me, and they paid me for that. And then it was like, what? Like, how big is this problem? And then we found out it's like an $8.6 billion problem per year being lost by travelers. And we were very lucky, fast forward, to have mentors like Uri Levine, which was back then the president of Waze. And we had Guy Shkori, which back then was in eBay. And all of the Zell program gave us so much feedback, and we didn't really know what to do with it. But for a year, we really developed the idea. And then we were just like very lucky to be able to go ahead with it, because we didn't really know what we'll do. We knew that not all of the people, the 3 of us, will want to continue working on that. But it was really, that was a very rational decision to become unemployed entrepreneur.
So what do you mean by unemployed entrepreneur?
I mean that when we started finishing school, you see that while this was an entrepreneurship program back then, not everyone becomes an entrepreneur by the
Yeah.
end of it.
And
I remember
not everybody should, right? And not everybody should. Yeah.
exactly. I think that we were like the minority that wanted to do that, but it's not like anyone gives you any guarantees that this is what you're going to experience or what you're going to have. And one of my best friends that was with me on the program, his name is Yoav Tzuel, is the co-founder and CEO of a company called named Pontera, formerly FIEX, a really successful company. And I remember that we were like talking about it and before flying to the US, because the pinnacle of the program is that you fly to the US and you meet Sam Zell, rest in peace, and you meet like executives from Google and Facebook. So that was before that. And we're like, what are we going to do? It's like, we want to keep working on that, but we're not going to have any salary. That was really frightening. And both of us really said, we don't know how it will work out, but we're going to jump on it.
Do you remember what helped you make that decision?
Yeah, definitely. Remember that there was like Yaron Samid, which is an Israeli entrepreneur. He had those competitions for Tech Aviv, meaning like he chose like 5 startups to compete in those Tech Aviv, one in
Yeah.
NYU, one in Stanford, and Rumor was not one of them. And so we were like not supposed.
And I don't resent it, and I don't remember even that was the case.
No, but that was like, I think the funniest thing was that we're not supposed to compete. And a day before, we were in Chicago, and a gentleman named Lowell Kraft was like hosting a dinner. And he said, like, it was a great dinner, steaks dinner in Chicago cut. And he has this kind of own firm with really great people working for him. And then he says, I know you're meeting Sam Zell tomorrow, so let me top that. Have you ever heard about Shark Tank? And everyone are like, what? And he said, the company that will pitch me the best today will get $18,000, which for us was like a fortune. Like, what is this? What's happening here? And I remember everyone shaking, and my co-founder, Ben, went up, gave the pitch of his life, and we've won this $18,000. And we're like,
was it a grant or just as a part of equity?
no, it like a grant. He gave it as
Goodwill.
yeah.
Okay, cool.
And we were like, I can't believe this is happening. And we were
Free
with,
money.
like, yeah, like this is possible. Like,
Yeah.
now we can work, like we can do this. But we were like coming in not even as an underdog. Like, no, we weren't even counted as one of the top 5 startups there. And then one company said, there is this competition. We don't want to participate. We want to, we don't want to do that. And then they said, you know what, Rumor, you won this $18,000. Like, you have some momentum. Go ahead and compete. And then we were in NYU, and I remember like there was like a vote and presentation, and then we won. And then we were like, oh my God, like this is happening. And then we were in Stanford the week later, and then we presented there, and we've won there. And it was.
And what does the winning? What did winning mean? It was glory. You got some money. What did you get?
It was. I think you only earn, basically it's every company pitches the deck, and then there was maybe some Q&A, but then there is the end like people voting for that. And what it gave us was this internal realization that we were onto something. It was like, if before the trip we were like, we want to do that, but should we? Is it a smart thing to do? It was like, you've got some money, and you got some validation, and you've got this kind of confidence that someone is telling you, keep going.
So what did you guys do? So you came back with a little cash in your pocket and a little more confidence in your step. And so what did you guys decide to do as the first steps?
So I remember Uri Levin calling me and saying, great job on your trip. I heard it was great, but now we need to raise money. And I've never, like, except for this experience with chief scientist, I didn't know what it means. Like, and he said we need to raise like $1 million or so, and we just got to it. And he was very articulate about what we need to do. Prove the market size, prove this, prove that. And when we came, it was very in, intensive but fulfilling process, because we ended up raising $2.2 million in a few months, which back then it was like very fast, and also a big amount, because we only had like a deck and maybe a prototype and some design partners. And that's when we turned that into a real company. We used this $18,000 to sublet an office in Shadal Street, and to have like some developers working and buying some sandwiches and like, but that was the most creative time I think
Yeah.
I've ever experienced.
So you went on market wanting to raise. So talk a little about the beginning, talk about raising money, talk about the early days of developing the product.
Sure. Basically, back then we had a CTO that was working with us with two more developers that were basically taking no pay. They were like working on equity. We had Ben, my co-founder, working on the business side and partnering with travel companies, and myself, which I was mainly focused on the fundraise. And we also had another designer, Maydad, which was working on the product and really making sure we can go and launch it as soon as we can. And I remember we were really looking into raising either a seed round from angels or a seed round from VCs. So we actually had like two plans. One was raising this seed round from angels, which was a few $100,000. And then if we'll see that it's working well, we'll raise the few $1 million or $1 million and something. And we started working on that. And in the first few meetings with VCs, we understood there is good feedback. Like you're getting invited to another meeting. And I think that like the gist of it was that there was like a competitive process for us, because we had few funds that were like interested, meaning that we got to the due diligence and some of them were like making offers, some of them weren't. We've met different types of investors.
Yeah.
We've met like people that were like super angels in a way, that they made some offers. I think one of the best parts was to actually say no to
Yeah.
someone.
I mean, it's a good situation. Like again, like a lot of entrepreneurs wish they were able to be invested.
Yeah, I think that it's like not that we said no because of specific valuation or terms. And it was not even to a VC fund. It was that you felt like you meet some people and you see like, this is not going to, this
To work.
might not end well. It
Yeah.
might end very badly. And I remember that when we were students, I was in the completely opposite mindset. I was like such a hustler in my mind. I was like, if I'm being offered money, I'll make it work. I don't really care who it is, but sometimes you feel this like vibes, and it gives you this confidence that, you really need a partner here, and that is a partnership when you sign
Yeah.
with a VC.
So how much did you end up raising in the beginning?
We raised $2.2 million from the BRM group, the Barkat family, and Eli and Iran, and also David Fatal, the owner of Fatal Hotels, invested, and Ilan Greenbaum, which was the former CEO of Eurocom Israel.
And what did you guys find out developing? How was the go-to market? Tell us about the experience of building the first version of it.
So Rumor was really a peer-to-peer marketplace that connected sellers that are people that just find out that they can't travel anymore and they need somewhere to recoup their money and sell their reservations. So those are like sometimes, many cases, one-time sellers. They're not repeat sellers, and they have a very specific life. And then on the other side, you have buyers or anyone who's looking for a great deal, and those are the budgets or the deal hunters. Those are more, it's a bigger market. And what we said was that we need to develop a go-to market here that will work maybe with the travel companies. And we started contacting those travel companies and found that, one, it's a huge unaddressed problem, but still it's for them a nice to have. But we're getting all of those travelers coming to the site. I remember like the PR piece here was very meaningful because the story got really shared organically. People really liked the idea. But if they came in and we launched only in 3 cities, New York, San Francisco, and Las Vegas, we kept receiving support emails like, hey, I want to sell a room here that you're not supporting.
In Minnesota or something like that. In other places?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or people were saying, I'm going to San Francisco, but not in these dates. So that's when we started really getting creative with how we source supply. And so we started working with travel companies on getting more supply, not just canceled inventory. And we also just opened the marketplace to everywhere as well. Obviously, it was an ongoing process of months, but we started seeing that this is starting to work. And then when we started raising our Series A round, which was about
What year are we talking about?
We're talking about, we raised the seed round at 2013, and then we raised the A round at 2014. And we started seeing that we were getting more and more supply. So people are starting to get to know us. But it's becoming an issue for us to find the right people to buy it for those specific dates. So
Which is interesting, right? Because if you would ask me without knowing anything else, I would say in the cold start problem, it's going to be easier to find buyers than it is to find sellers. So why was that?
I think that the biggest underestimated part in online travel is the competitive landscape in online marketing. Meaning, if you just look at this year, what the 4 online travel agencies and Airbnb are spending on online marketing, it's $20 billion.
It's one of Google's biggest sources of like Booking.com isn't like Google's biggest customer or something like that.
Yeah, travel is a 10 trillion industry. It's the third biggest export after like gas and some other types of manufacturing. It's huge and it's extremely competitive. And we didn't know like how competitive it is. So if, for example, you have a room in New York and it's heavily discounted, but when you search in Google for rooms in New York, you see Booking and Expedia and Airbnb. That's really the problem. And what we understood that we've built this kind of magical marketplace where you have those amazing deals, but if you don't find the right person looking for this right deal at the right time, it's not going to be working. And
it's like a tomato. It's like a tomato. It's good. It just has a shelf life. It's like a tomato on the supermarket. It's amazing. It looks beautiful, but it has a shelf life. You have to sell it in a very specific time.
Exactly. And it's a tomato that you can either sell at a premium price or you can sell that, if it's rotten, like no one would want it, but it still can just go missing.
Yeah.
So we knew we need to standardize our offering, meaning that if it was just a marketplace, we really need to build the magic around it. So we knew, and one of the offerings we gave to the sellers originally was that we standardize their listing. They send us a confirmation, we validate that, but we add the maps, the images. And we were talking to these big companies like TripAdvisor, Trivago, and Kayak, sell our inventory. And after more than a year, it happened. And I remember the first time we launched with Kayak, that was the first time we were seeing like boom, boom, boom. All of those deals are starting to like getting sold. So we reached a very, very high resale rate of those deals. So then the problem became supply and no longer demand because we were then selling them.
Because basically those companies became your distribution system.
Exactly. And they became a very good distribution channel because they are already so good at the top of the funnel, but they bring you a specific query that you have an advantage on. So it's like the slingshot of David, because you don't play on every bid, you play on those that you have a competitive advantage on. And that's where the supply became the issue. And we said, okay, like we can't really count on this organic as just the main thing. I was studying the insurance world and I've met someone who became the president of Berkshire Hathaway Travel. And he shared with me a story that when he was in AIG, there was this Justin Bieber concert and there was like so many cancellations happening because of a weather event. And one of the interns just posted those tickets on Ticketmaster. And it was so profitable for the insurance company that the regulator had to call him and say, like, what's happening? How are you making so much money on insurance? And then he had to explain, we had this intern, he sold it on Ticketmaster. That's how we've made
The intern sold the insurance on Ticketmaster?
No, the people who who claimed their insurance had those things.
They got, yeah, okay, they claimed the insurance and they got the inventory.
Exactly.
And he resold the inventory on Ticketmaster.
Exactly.
All right.
And that was like the most profitable insurance event in that time or something like that, for them, that it justified a regulator calling him. And he was like, if you can combine the marketplace and the insurance world, the resale part here is something that's not being done in travel. And that's when I understood like, okay, this can be a really strong B2B offering for us because we have this data about cancellations, but also we have this resale ability. And we were making like 15% on resale when like you post it on a marketplace. So if you sell a room on Rumor for $100, you'd get $85. We'll get the $15. So it's not a huge spread. It's a healthy spread, but it's not huge. But we found out that if we do the resale part and we run the whole cancellation protection operation, we can be like in 80% margins, which no one was running with in travel back then. So we had a demand, but then it was like, how do you build that? And we basically just built this operation from scratch. And we started selling this cancel for any reason product through online travel agencies. So they were offering this on their booking engine.
So basically was it an actual insurance product or it was like a kind of insurance product?
So it's a very interesting point because it was actually it was not an insurance product because in places like New York and other places, you need to go into the regulation, but they don't allow for an insurance product to be like canceled for any reason. So what it was actually, it was like today when you go to booking.com or the hotel, you have non-refundable or free cancellation.
Yeah.
So that was like a flexible cancellation. It was not an insurance. It was like a cancellation policy, but
you were basically the reinsurer.
So we actually worked, I think it was probably a year to get our first reinsurance or insurance policy. So we were operating as a startup, like collecting the money, paying out the customers like any travel company.
Yeah.
But on the background, we worked with really like insurance companies, first in the US and then globally. And it really scaled. We hired Sharon Aran, which was the CEO of Passport Card in Israel, and he ran this for us once it reached the scale. And then it's like really started feeding inventory back into Rumor that only we had. And it kind of solved also the biggest problem we had with Rumor originally, which was the awareness problem. So today, when you cancel a reservation, like today, you don't really think about how can I make money out of that, or it's not on top of your mind. But what we did was we took over the cancellation process for the customer. We let the hotels outsource it from their flow to our flow. So they don't need to handle the refunds. They don't need to handle the customer. We do it. And then that's how we can automatically resell the room. And that reached like very high resale rates for us in different cities. So that was a very, very good product until COVID happened.
And I have to say, like, it's very interesting. It's very interesting what you guys have done, because it seems you constantly, you found non-obvious channels, right? Because I think most entrepreneurs, when they're starting out, they're saying, oh, I have Google ads, I have organic marketing, I have PR, I have, whatever, right? It's like I have maybe affiliates, but what you've done, you found partnerships and you've constructed channels for economic.
Yeah, I think that's exactly the angle we were thinking of. What's the angle here that is unique to us? So that's the cancellation piece on that case, and what's the value we can create for the customer that they don't have today? What's the value we can create for the OTA or the hotel? For them, it was increasing the revenue, increasing the profit, improving the customer experience. And that was a very strong mindset for us for how can we work with the industry. And also it was a lesson for us because when we launched Rumor, I remember the first articles in 2013 in publications that are very specific to the travel industry, like T News, and that was like, Rumor is disruptive. And I remember back then Uber was disruptive and people liked using this word. But when you come to work within an industry, it can be a very big challenge. So we always wanted to have this partnership is something that can help us scale and not fight against the industry.
Yeah, you are in many ways a complement to the existing industry, not necessarily trying to replace them.
That's exactly how we saw that. Yeah.
So now you talked about this a bit earlier in the call, but you went through an evolution and I don't know if it's a pivot or evolution. I don't know you're defining it, but can you walk us through what you described to date and how you and the evolution you started doing and you are right now?
Sure. So I think that in COVID, it was one of the toughest explode. If I think that one of the toughest professional experiences, like in entrepreneurship, you can have back then, is running a cancel for any reason product in travel. In COVID. And that was a huge thing for us because on the one side, like the trajectory, like we were just starting to see the growth month over month really accelerated. We just signed huge partners. We were about to raise a new funding from travel companies that we worked with and like the technology, like the product. And then in one day, 6 years ago, sorry, March 13, 2020, all evaporated. All of the
went to zero. Yeah.
It went to, for travel companies, it went to negative because it's not just stopped. People were canceling like crazy. And we had a lot of, like, I personally had a lot of luck because I was living in New York and I was just I really internalized that this is the end of rumor as I know it. We had to speak very openly to all of our investors. The VCs that supported us, that invested in us, came to the decision that in March, like COVID, it was before the vaccines, people thought that the status quo was that there's not going to be travel for 4 or 5 years the way we know it. And I just remember speaking to each of the investors that invested in Rumor. It was probably like 20 people or so in addition to the VCs, and saying like, this is what's happening, this is what we're doing, very, very openly. And I remember that the group of US investors that I really enjoyed working with, they said, don't close it because, you know, whatever you've built is very valuable, and just hold on, like just wait. And we were very lucky to be able to work with the VCs that invested in us. They gave us a very, I would say BRM was very mensch. Like they gave us the ability to come to agreement with them about basically coming to a deal about acquiring their share in the company and rebuilding it, and that made it possible because I was able to work with US investors, recapitalize the company, but I knew that I'm not going to do the same thing. I'm not going to experience the same, like I don't want to build the same things I did before. But we had this huge infrastructure. We were connected to more than 2 million hotels. We had the marketplace. And that's when I've re-met a travel content creator named Peleg. He's more known in our country as Lonely Peleg. He's been one of the first travel creators in the country. He traveled to more than 140 countries. And he said, you know, I really want to come and build something with you in travel tech. And the first thing I told him was, look, Peleg, I have to be really honest with you. This is the situation of the company. You know, he was just doing this huge thing for Microsoft and he was expecting like this huge amount of dollars per hour. And I was like, you know, let's be very real. Like, this is my situation right now. I do want to work with you, but I want to be very honest. And luckily, like, he thought about it and said, you know, maybe he appreciated the honesty. Maybe he felt that, said, let's build, let's continue and see what we want to build. And that's when we found that this is a huge problem for the travel creators market. They're not making money. 99% of them are not making enough money, but they are driving the industry now. They're making the content. They're making Instagram rich. They're making TikTok rich. They're making YouTube rich, but they're not monetizing well. And the travel industry, as we know it, very outdated. They don't know how to work with creators. They don't have any attribution from what a creator did on Instagram to how much that leads to their bottom line. And you, Haggai, know it very well from.
Yeah, which is interesting because it's like years after this became, you know, when we recently had an offline conversation about it, it's like a lot of industries cut out, right? And it's actually surprising that the travel industry is kind of laggard in this space. It's like in the creator economy. Like, why? Why is that?
I think that the back end of the travel industry is a mystery to most people. I remember that I was in a huge conference for the travel industry, and one of the biggest, maybe the biggest travel on hotel chain in the world said very confidently, with a lot of pride, that they're never going to develop their own systems, CRS back then, because it's not what they want to do. And it was such a counterintuitive thing to how full stack is built anywhere else. But that's one, historically, how the industry has been built. And two, you need to also keep in mind that it's such a operational heavy industry that when you build a hotel, you need to host people, you need to make them happy. The technological part is like a whole new company. In most hotels, like for example, booking.com is working with Europe and other places, that 80% of those properties are not chain hotels.
Yeah.
Or maybe they have 10 people working there, maybe 20. So attribution for them is a very technical element. And I think that's historically been the case. And it creates a lot of opportunities, but the travel industry, I think, is very different from other industries as well.
Yeah. So I cut you off. So let's go back to the conversation. So you were starting to say that this industry is a bit laggard, and you saw the opportunity.
Yeah. So I think that from the backend side, I really understood that, and I saw how big demand is. Demand is driving everything. But also for me, travel was and it's a emotional, psychological, and spiritual experience. And there isn't a bigger, like, I don't think that there is a bigger gap between what I experience when I travel, what it does to the soul, the mind, to who we are, and the boring experience of finding a trip. Put in those check-in and check-out dates, enter a city, see those washed out reviews with no soul. It's like, we're not generic people. Like, we already changed the way we consume content, who we consume content from. But the travel industry is still based on photos. Like, it's crazy. It's a 10 trillion industry from like GDP perspective, and it's driven by photos and anonymous reviews. So we saw this gap. We saw that it's not serving the creators well, the current structure. And it's also not serving the travel sites, the travel OTAs in the way that, other sections of the industry has evolved to. And we said, can we build it? There are about 30 million travel creators right now, that 99% of them are not, maybe 99.9% of them are not getting paid. But we thought, like, we have this infrastructure. We can connect their content and make it shoppable. We can take this content and help them monetize that. And that was a very exciting thing for us, because this is how we wanted to travel, like based on real people's recommendations and videos.
So what did you actually do? So somewhere, and how did it progress? Because like I heard you say so far, COVID was the turning point. You survived COVID, and then you say, I don't want to do what I did before. Now I have this vision that the creative economy is the way to go, and I think rightly so, but I'm biased. Like, what are the actual steps you went for this? And also, have you stopped doing what you've done before, or is the creative economy on top of it?
So basically, what we stopped doing was the cancel for any reason product. that was very like a clear cut. We actually did offer for a while a cancel for a reason with other companies, but that was to go back into like where the travel is and need to offer like COVID protection and so forth. But the real part was going back into the mindset, into the white belt karate mindset, in terms of speaking to travel creators from scratch, learning about their process, what they're doing today, what's not working for them, what is working and they would like to elevate. So that was like a customer discovery that I thought was very good, because still today we've scaled that from 0 to 1,000 creators right now around the world that joined Rumor. And I think that the learnings we've made in the beginning of the process that are really deep about what's the pain for them helped us lead the solution for them. And that was from like what Shopify did for entrepreneurs and the tools it gave them. But speaking specifically to travel creators, we thought about that perspective. The other perspective is what kind of solution or experience we're giving their followers. What kind of solution and experience are we giving the people that are coming to Rumor and want to discover a place to stay at? And that's where we thought about the Gen Z / millennial person who is on the couch on Thursday night saying, you know what are we going to do this weekend? And then they open the app and they see a video and they say, I'm going to do that. And we wanted to build for that customer. And we've built this whole process that is a video platform. And the video platform is connected to the booking platform of Rumor. So when you upload, for example, a video of the Four Seasons Hotel in Chicago, it automatically connects that to the Four Seasons Chicago on Rumor. And that's where we add all of the information of the hotel, all of the pricing, the availability, everything around that, the maps, photos. And we've added obviously attribution. So once a creator shares that with their followers and one of them sees the video and books that, we have the full circle on Rumor. So,
And what's your relationship there between your platform and the social media platforms, TikTok, Meta, and YouTube?
Basically, our relationship is with the creator. The creators are adding Rumor to their link tree. They're adding Rumor to their stories. Another problem we found was that they are saturated with DMs. So some travel creators are getting hundreds of DMs a day for people asking them, where should I travel? Where is this? And today, they try to give this service to their followers, but they're sending them because they don't have any affiliation to the hotel side, to that side or whatever. And thought, what if we just give them this place where they can just share this link and monetize from that?
Yeah, it's about.
And that's what we've built in the first version of Rumor, and it gives them the
So
ability.
basically, like just to be clear, like if I'm the influencer, I have a creator. I created a video about my my experience in the Four Seasons in Bangkok. I uploaded on my socials. I uploaded it also on Rumor. On my socials, I do a call to action. Look at my bio link tree for if you want to book, or if it's somewhere that I can leave text. I don't know, YouTube. I can actually put a link on the description itself. But the goal is to drive people to the Rumor application, Rumor site, so people can complete their purchase.
Exactly, and Rumor is mainly a layer because we also found out that by adding, for example, Expedia or Priceline links, we can drive a lot of traffic outside of Rumor to those sites, and they convert really well.
Yeah.
We have the attribution back to the creator. So the creator earns, it's basically monetizes their content and by making their video a shoppable video with all of the information around.
And what has been difficult about this change? And what was what was very easy about this change?
I think that what was not trivial about that was that in many ways it's like starting a new startup.
Yeah.
Because you have a new direction, you have little to prove with it. You have an assumption, you have an idea, but then you need to justify a budget to build that. You need patience, and you need to start from zero.
Yeah.
So I think that it's very tempting to continue with something that is already working to some extent, and keep pushing. That's very natural. I think that because COVID was so drastic and so hard, I mainly looked at the upside saying, I've never felt as excited about an opportunity like that because we've heard from the travel creators, like this is something they want. We've heard from, the people that are Gen Zers, they don't know TripAdvisor. Like they don't get their information from TikTok or Instagram.
Yeah.
And then AI happened and it just made things so much more accessible because now we analyze those videos. We analyze the videos and we know how good are they and what is the psychology behind them. What's the psychology of the creator? We have data that was 3-4 years ago unimaginable to have if you're not Google or Meta.
Yeah.
And we have now so much information about the location that I don't think almost anyone in the internet has, because we're combining the subjective truth of the creator, or let's call it taste, with the objective truth, which
Yeah.
is what millions of people around the world said about this place. And that's really exciting as well from that perspective.
So actually, this is maybe an interesting segue, because it's like, and it's, I don't think there's one single podcast I've done since its inception a few months ago, but we didn't have a conversation about AI. So how has AI changed how you work? How's AI changed the industry you operate in? And like, what are you seeing?
I think that specifically in how we work, it changed dramatically because, and I think that this is on the one side very widespread across tech specifically. It's like, if you remember 10 years ago or so, when people
When we
were
were
like,
young, when we were young and beautiful and had a full hair, right?
people were like talking about, well, how many employees you have,
Yeah.
how much is the team growing, and that kind of became like, not like, that was the metric people were like
Yeah.
showboating about. And I think that now maybe one of the metrics people are leading with is what's the revenue per employee, as
Yeah.
that part. I
How
think
many
that
how many agents do you have working for you? How many tokens are you burning a week?
exactly, people are specifically talking about how many tokens they're using as like a
As
sign
a
of
metric,
the.
yeah.
But we really look at it as, the companies that we knew we can't compete with, we couldn't compete with before, are basically AI companies, because those were like TikTok. It's an AI company with
Yeah.
content on top of it. YouTube, it's both, right? But they were the OGs of AI
Yeah.
as well, with the everything that Google developed in AI. And Meta as well is like, they have all of the AIs. So it really is giving us the ability to build tools that allow us now with multimodal AI, analyze content, analyze video, analyze media in a way that just wasn't possible before. It was part of what giant companies and only them can do. I think that for travel, it's still soon to tell, but my thesis is that travel is something that you don't want to screw up, meaning that there was this funny article about, funny for us, not for those travelers, like hundreds of travelers that went to a non-existent lake in Australia because an AI hallucinated that in an
Oh, I
article.
didn't hear about that. That's interesting.
Yeah, I don't know if I can share the screen here.
Yeah.
I'll pop it up. But, it's like, we all know, it's like the trust is.
But it's interesting. Look, I don't know the case, but I totally understand how you might query ChatGPT and it will give you something, but you have to put it in Waze or Google Map at some point. Wouldn't you see that?
You see, like, I think that that's exactly like the incentives are like, you want to have more content output, and you want, because you monetize based on ads, so something has to go, right? But also travel specifically is just, obviously it can benefit from AI significantly in many ways, but I think that the one thing that I think will become even deeper is this, the importance of the human creators
Yeah.
alongside that. Maybe not for everybody, but I think that they're becoming the new experts, and their new thesis about like taste is the new thing.
Yeah.
So I think that specifically for travel, like with creators, they're becoming even more important, because how do you differentiate and how do you know what to decide? So I think that that's a really important development as well.
Interesting. I mean, if you're looking now for the next year, 3 years, what's the future for?
Hopefully, Rumor will do two things successfully. One is to go wider, and the second is to go deeper. And by wider, I mean that since we've built Rumor, we've only been doing hotels. But travel is so much more than just hotels. It's where you travel to, it's what you eat, it's what you experience. It's so many decisions that travel creators are already producing amazing content for. But I think that I experienced that I've made some right decisions in the destination, but then went to the wrong restaurant or went to the wrong experience. And I think that that's the wider part is very natural because we're based on the content creators. The other part is going deeper, and we're actually launching this week a new tool for creators that is basically taking their videos and turning that into a full article, built like the top magazines in the world, and helping them monetize that based on ads as well. But the bigger part here is to connect them to brands, because you know it better than most people. This is a very painful experience for brands and creators, how they connect to each other. So imagine everything we spoke about the travel industry, which is such a huge industry, which also has government funding, because one of 10 jobs in the world, is going 1 to 8, is related to travel.
To travel somehow.
Yeah, and they, the DMOs, the tourism boards, they see that every dollar they invest in travel marketing leads to $3.7 back. So the ROI is there, but the process is so manual. It's like 8 months to jumpstart a campaign with a creator. And that's one thing that with our creator network, with our data about the creators and their content, and what we know now about brands.
So you basically can have a B2B offering both for governmental institutions and for brands of saying like, hey, you want a solution for your region. You want a solution for this type of experience. You want a solution for this type of content created. Here it is, right? And I can also do attribution on top of it.
Exactly. So it's the attribution. It's the multi-content purposing that you can get, which is more than just a video. And mostly it's finding the right creator that is right for you. It's finding what the campaign could be and should be based on your brand and those creators. And then it's really getting those insights that are lacking today, because most in travel, they go into vanity metrics. They go into views and likes, and that's fine for people who don't really care about the bottom line, but most companies care about it. And so I think that that's what the combination of the creators network and the AI is really leading towards.
Interesting. So I want to take a bit of a step back and go a little more like general on the entrepreneurial experience. And there's a few questions I was interested to hear the perception from other entrepreneurs. I'm saying it's like, from your experience, and you've been doing this for a while. I mean, crises and ups and downs, and a few fundamental changes. If it's COVID, if it's AI, if it's the content, the creator economy, and all that. But from your perspective, what makes a good founder, a good entrepreneur?
I think that a good founder, in my opinion, is combining curiosity, real intellectual curiosity, because that's what makes you find the right experience or the right opportunity to pursue, but also to say no to the wrong opportunities within that. The other part is, I would say, humility. And then obviously everyone says resilience. But I think that humility is very important, because if you come with ego, then you might be curious about the opportunity and about the problem, but you might say, no, I know better. And I think that it makes your life so much easier if you know that you sometimes don't know, and you're coachable and you're able to elevate yourself. And I think that resilience is just like the outcome of just continuing doing that, because no one that I'm surrounded with, and some of my friends and investors are very, very successful. They are very much hands-on. Like, they really know the ins and outs. So I think that it's very important to be with hands-on on that, because the founders that are just in the vision but can't take that into the real pain point or the real priorities of the product are just going to take much more time, and time is the oxygen. You need a lot of oxygen for that.
And allow me to put, I mean, everything you said makes sense to me. What I would have to say is like, so for somebody who's listening to this, like, how do you put that into practice?
So I think that first of all, like the curiosity part, right? It's like, how much data do you input and how well do you synthesize that within you? Because obviously, let's just take the one experience, which might be this AI agents, right? Everyone said this is going to be the biggest thing, and many people are working on AI agents. But then how well do you synthesize that based on the competitive advantage that you have as an
Yeah.
entrepreneur versus like what Claude or others are doing that? And I think that if you go and you really care about AI agents, you might find a specific industry and interview the people there and see the gaps and see where you have an advantage, where you don't have an advantage. And like content creators, right? Many times need to start with a niche of a niche. Like you need sometimes like two niches for it to start with, because not just because it's more defensible, but because that you need to be a category leader. You need to do that. I think that if you
Yeah, because you need to master something, and to master something, it needs to be very specific.
exactly. And that's what, for example, Peleg, that is in many ways the co-founder of the video element, is saying to content creators today. You need to go like to be in a niche of a niche. And I think that to do that, you need a lot of curiosity, because you many times, Elon Musk, right? He studied rockets and he studied like, oh, it's not something that he was born with, but he was able to learn that. And I think that obviously there's so many opportunities with AI and anything else, but you need to go and be able to become an expert
Yeah.
enough to find a solution. And I think that if you don't have the humility there, you'll either go and uh, not understand the lack of a competitive advantage, or you might not understand why you're not a category king here and why it's important.
Yeah.
But also, it's a very painful experience to just hit yourself against the wall, right? It's exactly. So let's say that you find that specific problem for HAVEC companies, right? Like AI for specifically for HAVEC companies, and you become the category king there, and you speak to so many operators there, and you come up with a solution, and you also come up with the understanding that you might have bad ideas, like you might have ideas and they're not relevant. That's going to make your time to market so much faster than just going the other way around, saying I'm going to develop something that no one needs. Like that's actually the story of so many companies.
Yeah.
And then the resilience, I think that it's like I don't know how you learn that, but it's just like you need to be very open with yourself and not BS yourself, because that's the hardest part.
So let me push you also on the same kind of thinking. So if you got to travel back in time to the days Gon was in Zell, right, and just starting out this entrepreneurial journey, and you had, I don't know, a 10-minute conversation with yourself, what would be like the most important thing you wish you knew, like starting out?
I think that one of the common things we got like to absorb, and it's still happening today, I don't think that it will end, was like the fake it till you make it mantra. And I remember that when COVID happened, I just didn't have any ounce of energy left for bullshit.
It was a punch in the gut. It was a real punch in the gut.
It was few steps after that, right? I felt like I have no energy but to tell the truth, and the truth was very bleak, right? It's like where we are, but how I felt after that was I could never go back. I didn't want to and I think that there is like a moderation for each, because you always have to look at the future and believing that the best is yet to come. But I think that the integrity of like knowing that this is where we are, this is what's not working, this is what looks promising, and this is where I think this could be a really game changer. I think that that's a great combination, because I think that you many times are just very scared to say or admit, maybe to yourself, maybe to your investors, whoever, something is not working. And we see that in all sections of life. And I think that, like, I would say it's fine, and more than that, once you handle a problem head on with transparency and honesty with yourself, you're so much more likely to solve it. And it doesn't degrade your ability to sell a vision. It doesn't degrade your ability to sell excitement. Be both. So I would say I would just make myself more comfortable with myself, like understanding what's not working, acknowledging that, and learning from that, because I think that once you are just focused on the glitz and the hype or whatever, like it's very hard for you to then stop and admit that, fake it till you make it makes you like die inside.
It's very interesting that you say that. I recently kind of have been, Charlie Munger, the
Yeah.
partner of Warren Buffett, right? So like, I mean, both of them are very smart people, but Charlie Munger, I think, is a little more open with his kind of thought processes. I mean, and he, there's a lot more places it's written, and a lot more places he talks about, because he also had other companies he was chairman of beside Berkshire Hathaway, and there's a lot of public transcripts. So I don't know if you see, but I have a little obsession with the Berkshire Hathaway, even before they were cool. Even before they were cool. And one of the things like he talks about the fact is exactly what you said. It's about it's like you said, the successes, again, I'm paraphrasing, but the successes take care of themselves. The failures what need attention. And with AI, right? It's like with AI, you could even see it, but in his when he writes his letters and as the chairman, it's like all the successes have a few sentences, and all the problems, all the opportunity cost, even fuck ups, like even the opportunity cost fuck ups have a lot more space, a lot of more space in the letter. So it's very interesting what you say.
So I'll share with you a story. We had a deal with Berkshire Hathaway that was taking a long, long time to sign. And if you know Eli Barkat, I think he studied math in university, but he's also some sort of a genius. He's very, very, very smart. And he's also very hands-on. And in terms of like how good of an investor he is, and his brother Eran. And we were negotiating this deal with Berkshire Hathaway, and the deal was saying like 50-50. And he found something in the Excel that made it, I don't know, in some scenarios, 51% to us and 49% to them.
Yeah.
Something could have been easily been missed, but in some scenarios. And I remember sending this to the Berkshire Hathaway team over email, and they didn't really maybe understood what I was meaning to say, because they maybe thought I wanted to be 51% to us,
Yeah.
1% to them. And my wife and I went to a wedding and in Friday and come back to Tel Aviv. We were I was half drunk, and we were sitting we were in a vegan wedding, so we were very hungover after that. And I remember getting this email from them, they didn't really understand it, and I was like, let's order coffee, I'll just speak to them. And then when they understood what was behind it, that we were aiming for the 50-50, and that it was on the benefit of them as well. The deal that took forever to close and we didn't know, a week later was done. Because I think that this intellectual honesty and just being honest has huge dividends as well that might be forgotten otherwise. And I was very lucky to join the advisory board of Berkshire Hathaway Travel Protection after that.
Wow.
And yeah, I was very, very lucky because I got to see how they think and how they operate. And Dean Sively, the president of Berkshire Hathaway Travel Protection, he became some sort of a family to me and my family in the US. And I learned a lot about how to operate and how to communicate based on them. They say the bad things first. I like it.
That's nice. And I would add to it that this is my thinking. And again, I don't think I'm personally any special or something like that. And I think I'm very self-interested. I have a lot of self-interest. But behind that says that I think that what you don't realize when you're starting out, that you have a very long career ahead of you. As an entrepreneur, as a person and things like that, and a lot of relationships that feel like one-off, you're actually going to meet people again and again and again and again and again and again through life. And and it's this stupid thing, treat other people how you want to be treated. And it doesn't mean you don't screw up. It doesn't mean you don't make mistakes. It doesn't mean you don't get angry sometimes. You don't misunderstand things sometimes. But it just think about the fact that life is longer than this week, this month, even this year or 3 years. With 3 years, that life is very, very long, and people remember that. I think really, I remember when people behaved like you described, and I think people remember when I behaved in a decent way, or maybe they thought I didn't behave in a decent way, and they remember it. And then you meet people again and again. It's very useful to build a good reputation. And you know what? from purely self-interested reasons, right? Because you want to play the game again and again.
Yeah, like I think that one of my personal like the goats, King Solomon, there's Warren Buffett.
Translate it so people, for people who don't speak Hebrew, people don't speak biblical Hebrew.
Yeah, it's better to have a good name than like good oil, where back then oil was the biggest thing. Might go back to that, but as Warren Buffett says, like if you'll be free translating that into, but if you lose some money for him, you'll be forgiving you, but if you'll mess with his reputation,
Yeah.
he will be merciless.
Yes.
And I think that that's exactly true, but I think that it's liberating from two ways, right? Because I think that when I started out, I was like raising money and everything. I was 25 or 26, and we were in this entrepreneurship program. And I really came from no background, or I didn't know anyone who was an entrepreneur. I didn't know anyone who was like, I didn't know how they managed themselves or carried themselves. And I think that it was like such a big prize in my mind to just like, on one side, it was like meditating and manifesting it. And that was true. But I think that it's this block of like not saying what's negative. And you can see that in our reality in Israel, right? We are now in a war and no one takes any responsibility for bad things. You can't even say sometimes bad things. What's objectively a bad thing? So I think that it's like very much like forgiving myself for like wanting this picture perfect. And I think that you see the Forbes 30 under 30. It's like this biggest like fraud detection now. Like how many people go, but you can understand also why. Like you need to understand why people are doing that. It's because that there is this huge pressure to, I don't know, succeed or show this picture. But I think that the hack is that it makes it easier to succeed if
Yeah.
you're just being honest, not being too bleak or pessimistic,
Yeah.
but just being honest with yourself.
Yeah, this is the problems, and I'm going to take care of it. It's a good statement. It's a good
Yeah.
statement to make. Yeah. It's a good statement. I mean, it's easy to say it like this, right? In the heights of emotion, it's hard, but it's the
Yeah,
gist of
I
it.
think
Yeah.
it's one of the only ways forward. But as you said, it's like also there is more money to be made in the center of the table than on the sides, as Warren Buffett also says. And I think that there is so many people that just are making amazing lives for themselves by doing the right things, by doing like playing on the center field. But yeah, I completely agree with you.
So I think on this note, it's a great place to wrap up. So, Gon, people who want to reach you and find you, where we should go?
I'm available on Instagram as Gon BD, and on LinkedIn, I'm there. And also on my email is gon@rumortravel.com.
Amazing. So thank you, Gon, and best of luck, and keep on rocking.
Thank you, Haggai.
It's a wrap. This Aggaeus podcast episode ends here, but you don't. Now, is it crazy to think that you know somebody who'd love this episode? Share it with them, and they'll love you for it.